You know that moment when your entire world shifts on its axis? When everything you thought you knew about yourself, about another person, about the careful walls you've built around your heart, all of it, crumbles in a single instant? I'm Ethan Mitchell, and I'm 26 years old. If you'd asked me 3 months ago where I'd be today, I would have painted you a picture of my predictable life, working my design job at a boutique marketing agency in Seattle, coming home to my modest apartment in Capitol Hill, and maintaining a comfortable, if somewhat lonely, existence. I'd been out and proud since college, but after a devastating breakup 2 years ago, I'd convinced myself that maybe I was better off alone. Safer that way. Less complicated. Then Marcus Chen moved in. I still remember the day he responded to my roommate ad. It was late April, and I'd been searching for someone to split the rent for nearly 2 months. Seattle wasn't getting any cheaper, and my 1-bedroom turned 2-bedroom needed someone who could appreciate exposed brick, vintage hardwood floors, and the fact that the radiator made sounds like a dying whale every morning at 6. Marcus appeared at my door on a Saturday afternoon, and I'd be lying if I said my heart didn't skip a beat. He was exactly my type in all the ways I'd trained myself not to notice anymore. Athletic build, warm brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled, black hair that fell just slightly over his forehead in that effortlessly perfect way that some guys managed without even trying. He wore a faded university hoodie and jeans that fit him just right. "Hi, I'm Marcus," he said, extending his hand with a smile that could melt glaciers. "I saw your ad about the room." I shook his hand, probably holding on a second too long. "Ethan, come in. Let me show you around." As I gave him the tour, I learned the basics. He was 27, worked as a physical therapist at a sports medicine clinic, loved hiking and cooking, and was looking for a place closer to downtown. He seemed easygoing, genuinely kind, and remarkably normal, which in the world of roommate roulette felt like winning the lottery. "So, what do you think?" I asked as we stood in the kitchen. Sunlight streaming through the large windows overlooking the street. Marcus looked around, his eyes taking in the space with an appreciation that made me oddly proud of my humble apartment. "Honestly, it's perfect. The location, the space, the vibe." He turned to me with that devastating smile again. "And you seem cool. Way better than the last 3 places I looked at." "Oh yeah. What was wrong with those?" He laughed, and the sound filled the kitchen with warmth. One guy had a pet python that was usually in its tank. Another place smelled like something had died in the walls. And the third person spent 20 minutes telling me about their conspiracy theories regarding pigeons being government drones. I couldn't help but laugh. Well, I can promise no pythons, no mysterious smells, and I firmly believe pigeons are just flying rats, not surveillance equipment. "Then I think we have a deal," Marcus said, extending his hand again. "That is, if you'll have me. If you'll have me." The phrase echoed in my mind in ways he couldn't have intended. "Welcome home." "Roommate," I said, shaking his hand firmly. Already trying to establish the careful boundaries I'd need to maintain, Marcus moved in 2 weeks later, and I quickly discovered that living with him was both easier and harder than I'd anticipated. Easier because he was genuinely a great roommate. He kept his space clean, always did his dishes, had a respect for quiet hours that bordered on telepathics. Somehow he always knew when I needed silence to work on a design project. He'd leave little notes on the fridge: "Bought milk, help yourself," or "made extra stir-fry. It's in the blue container." Harder because Marcus Chen was, quite simply, impossible not to develop feelings for. It started with small things. The way he'd emerge from his morning run, skin glistening with sweat, pulling his shirt off as he headed to the shower, the sound of him singing off-key in the kitchen while making his infamous Sunday pancakes, the rare moments when he'd be absorbed in a book on the couch, his reading glasses perched on his nose, looking so different from his usual energetic self. But more than the physical attraction, which I firmly kept locked in a box labeled "never going there," was the way he made me feel seen. Marcus had this quality about him, a genuine interest in people that made you feel like you were the only person in the room when he was talking to you. "So what made you want to become a designer?" he asked one evening about a month after moving in. We were sitting on the couch, him with a beer, me with a glass of wine. Some forgettable sitcom playing on TV. I shrugged, caught off guard by the question. Most people didn't really care about the origin stories of others. I guess I've always been drawn to the idea of creating something beautiful that also serves a purpose. Design is where art meets function, you know? It's not just about making things pretty. It's about making them work better, feel better, communicate better. Marcus listened with complete attention, his eyes never leaving my face. That's actually really cool. I kind of feel the same way about physical therapy. It's not just about fixing injuries. It's about understanding how the body moves, flows, adapts. Every person is different, like their own unique design. We talked for hours that night, the TV forgotten. I learned about his parents, immigrants from Taiwan who'd built a successful restaurant in Portland. He told me about his younger sister, Emily, who was studying pre-med at UCLA. He shared his dreams of maybe opening his own practice someday, something focused on helping LGBTQ+ athletes who often faced unique challenges in sports medicine. That last part caught me off guard. LGBTQ+ athletes specifically? Yeah, he said, his expression growing more serious. I did my thesis on it, actually. There's this whole intersection of body image, performance pressure, and identity that doesn't get addressed enough in traditional sports medicine. Plus, a lot of queer athletes don't feel comfortable being fully themselves with their healthcare providers. His passion for the subject was evident, and something about the way he spoke with such genuine care and understanding made my heart ache in the best and worst way. That's really important work, I said quietly. Thanks, he replied, meeting my eyes with an intensity that made my breath catch. I think everyone deserves to feel safe and understood, especially when they're vulnerable. The moment stretched between us, loaded with something I couldn't quite name. Then Marcus cleared his throat and reached for the remote. Anyway, want to watch something actually good? This show is terrible. Just like that, we were back to normal. But something had shifted. I'd glimpsed beneath the surface of my charming athletic roommate, and what I found there made it exponentially harder to maintain my careful emotional distance. The next few weeks fell into a comfortable rhythm. We'd cook dinner together a few nights a week, him teaching me his mom's recipes, me sharing the limited repertoire I'd mastered over the years. We'd watch movies on weekends, argue good-naturedly about everything from the best pizza toppings to whether the Mariners had any hope this season. They didn't. I introduced him to my best friend, Riley, a non-binary photographer who'd been my rock since college. We met them for drinks at a queer bar in Capitol Hill, and I watched nervously as they sized Marcus up with the protective scrutiny of a concerned sibling. Marcus, Riley said, their purple-tinted hair catching the colored lights of the bar. What's it like living with this one? They jerked their thumb toward me. Marcus grinned. Honestly, pretty great. He's neat, quiet, makes a mean pasta carbonara, and hasn't once complained about my 6 a.m. alarm, even though I know it wakes him up. It's fine, I interjected. Better than my last roommate who had people over until 3 a.m. every Thursday? Marcus asked, eyebrows raised. What was Thursday? Thirsty Thursday, apparently, I said with an eye roll. College never ended for Kyle. Riley laughed, then leaned forward conspiratorially. Okay, real talk, has Ethan made you watch his comfort movie yet? Riley, I warned. Which one? Marcus asked, genuinely curious. When Harry Met Sally? Riley and I said, simultaneously. Marcus's face lit up. Wait, you love that movie? That's one of my favorites. I stared at him. Seriously? Are you kidding? It's perfect. The dialogue, the chemistry, the realistic way it portrays friendship and love. He caught himself, laughing. Sorry, I get a little passionate about it. Riley caught my eye, giving me a look that very clearly said, you're in so much trouble, before excusing themselves to get another round of drinks. We should watch it together sometime, Marcus said, and the casual way he suggested it made it feel like the most natural thing in the world. Yeah, I managed. We should. That night, lying in bed and listening to the familiar sounds of Marcus getting ready for sleep in the next room, I forced myself to confront the truth I'd been avoiding. I was falling for my roommate. My straight roommate, who talked about his ex-girlfriend occasionally. who was kind and wonderful and completely unavailable. I'd been down this road before, the hopeless crush on the unattainable straight guy. In high school, it had been my best friend Jake, who I'd pined after for 2 years before finally moving on. In college, a guy named Chris, from my graphic design class, who I'd convinced myself might be interested until I saw him making out with a girl at a party. Each time, I'd promised myself I'd learned my lesson. Each time, I'd been wrong, but this felt different. This wasn't just attraction or infatuation. This was the dangerous territory of genuinely caring about someone, of wanting them to be happy even if it wasn't with you. This was the kind of feeling that crept up slowly and then hit you all at once. Like realizing you'd been walking toward a cliff and suddenly finding yourself at the edge. I needed to be more careful. I needed to protect myself. The universe, apparently. I had other plans. It happened on a Friday night in late June. I'd been working late on a pitch for a new client. Hunched over my laptop at the kitchen table, fueled by coffee and determination, Marcus had texted earlier saying he'd be out with some colleagues from the clinic. So I'd settled in for a quiet night alone. Around 11 p.m., I heard his key in the lock. The door opened and Marcus stumbled in, not drunk exactly, but definitely tipsy. His cheeks were flushed, his hair mussed, and he had that loose, relaxed posture that came with a few drinks. "Ethan," he said, his face breaking into a wide smile when he saw me. "You're still up?" "Big project," I explained, gesturing to my laptop. "How was your night?" "Good. Really good." "We went to this new place on Broadway," and he paused, swaying slightly. "Is it warm in here?" "It feels warm." Before I could respond, he'd pulled his shirt over his head, tossing it toward the couch and missing entirely. He stood there in his jeans, chest bare, and I felt my mouth go dry. "Marcus, maybe you should." "You know what?" he interrupted, moving toward me with purpose. He pulled out the chair next to mine and sat down, close enough that I could smell the faint scent of beer and his cologne. "You're a really good friend, Ethan. Like, really good. I don't tell you that enough." My heart was hammering. "Thanks, man." "You too. No, I mean it." His eyes were serious now, searching mine with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "You're one of the best people I've ever met. You're kind and funny and talented, and you make me feel—" He paused, his brow furrowing as if he was trying to work something out. "You make me feel things I don't understand." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning I was afraid to interpret. "You're drunk," I said gently. "Maybe we should get you some water, and I'm not that drunk," he insisted, though his hand reached out to steady himself on the table. "Just honest drunk. The kind where you say things you're usually too scared to say." My pulse was racing. "What things?" Marcus looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something flicker across his face. Confusion, maybe, or fear, or desire, or all three at once. Then he shook his head, standing up abruptly. "I need to sleep," he mumbled. "Sorry, forget I said anything." He made it 3 steps toward his room before his legs gave out. I jumped up, catching him before he could hit the floor. His weight solid and warm against me. "Lightweight, let's get you to bed," I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I helped him toward his room. "I'm not a lightweight," he protested, but he let me guide him. I can't think straight when you're this close." I froze, my heart stopping. "What?" But Marcus didn't answer. By the time I got him to his bed, he was already half asleep. Murmuring something incoherent as I pulled off his shoes and draped a blanket over him, I stood there for a moment, looking down at his peaceful face, my mind racing. What did he mean? Was it just drunk rambling, the kind of meaningless confession that evaporates with sobriety? Or was there something more beneath the surface? Something I'd been too afraid to see? "Good night, Marcus," I whispered, and left him to sleep. I didn't sleep at all that night. I lay in bed, replaying every interaction we'd ever had, searching for signs I might have missed. The way he'd sometimes look at me a beat too long. The casual touches that lingered. The interest in LGBTQ plus issues that went beyond professional curiosity. Or maybe I was just seeing what I wanted to see. Projecting my feelings onto innocent gestures and kind words. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was nothing. Marcus would wake up, probably not remember much of what he said, and things would go back to normal. I was wrong. I woke to the smell of coffee and pancakes. Dragging myself out of bed, I found Marcus in the kitchen, looking remarkably put together for someone who'd needed help walking the night before. He turned when he heard me, and I saw something different in his eyes. Maybe uncertainty. "Morning," he said, his voice careful. "I made coffee and pancakes. Peace offering for last night." "You don't need to. I was a mess," he interrupted. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that." Poured myself coffee. My hand's not quite steady. "It's fine. Everyone ties one on occasionally." "Did I?" He hesitated, not meeting my eyes. "Did I say anything weird?" "I have these gaps in my memory, and I just want to make sure I didn't cross any lines or make you uncomfortable." This was my out. I could lie, tell him he'd just been affectionate and silly, and we could both move on. It would be easier, safer. But something in his expression stopped me. The vulnerability there, the genuine worry. Marcus deserved honesty. He said I was a good friend, I told him carefully. And that I made you feel things you didn't understand. His face went pale, then flushed. "Oh, God, Ethan, It's okay," I said quickly. "Really? You were drunk?" People say all kinds of things when they're drunk. But what if they're things I've been thinking when I'm sober? The words came out in a rush. And Marcus looked as surprised as I felt that he'd said them. The kitchen fell silent, except for the bubbling of the coffee maker. I set down my mug, afraid I might drop it. "What are you saying?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd come to recognize as his tell when he was anxious. "I don't know. That's the problem. He took a deep breath. "I've never felt this way about a guy before. About anyone, really. Not like this. And I don't know what it means or what I'm supposed to do with it." My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. "Marcus, let me finish," he said, finally meeting my eyes. "Please. I've been trying to figure this out for weeks, and I think if I don't say it now, I never will." I nodded, unable to speak. When I moved in here, I thought I knew exactly who I was. Straight guy, had a few serious girlfriends. Thought I'd eventually settle down with someone nice and check all the conventional boxes. He laughed without humor. Then I met you, and suddenly nothing made sense anymore. I'd find myself looking forward to coming home just to see you. I'd make excuses to spend time with you. I started noticing things about you, the way you bite your lip when you're concentrating. How your whole face lights up when you're excited about something. The sound of your laugh? He paused, his hands gripping the edge of the counter. And I kept telling myself it was just friendship, just admiration for a good person. But then last night, when I'd had just enough to drink to quiet the voice in my head that kept insisting I was imagining things, I couldn't deny it anymore. "Deny what?" I asked, even though I thought I knew, even though I was terrified and hopeful in equal measure. Marcus looked at me with an expression so raw, so open, it made my chest ache. "That I'm falling for you. That I have been, probably since the first week I moved in. And I have no idea what to do about it because I've never had to navigate this before, and I'm scared I'm going to mess everything up." The words I'd dreamed of hearing, never actually believing I would, and now that they were here, hanging in the air between us, I found myself frozen. "Say something," Marcus pleaded. "Please, even if it's to tell me I've made this weird and you want me to move out. Just say something." I found my voice, though it came out shaky. "You haven't made it weird, and I definitely don't want you to move out." "No." I shook my head, taking a step toward him. "Marcus, I've been half in love with you since you showed up for that first apartment viewing. I've been fighting it every single day because I thought I laughed, the sound almost hysterical. I thought you were straight. I thought I was setting myself up for heartbreak. Again." His eyes widened. "Again? It's kind of my pattern," I admitted. "Fall for straight guys who can never feel the same way. I promised myself I wouldn't do it anymore, especially not with my roommate. But you made it impossible. I'm sorry, Marcus said, and I could see he meant it. I'm not. I took another step closer, close enough now to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. But Marcus, I need you to be sure about this. Questioning your sexuality is huge, and it's complicated, and I won't be an experiment for you. If we go down this road, I need to know you're serious. I'm serious, he said immediately. I know I'm new to all this, and I know I'm probably going to make mistakes because I have no idea what I'm doing. But I've never been more certain about wanting to explore something. To explore this with you. The sincerity in his voice, the hope in his eyes. It was everything I'd wanted and everything I'd been afraid to wish for. So what happens now? I asked. Marcus smiled, tentative but real. I was hoping you might have some ideas. Since you know you're the expert here, I couldn't help but laugh. I'm not sure expert is the right word, but maybe we could start slow. Take things one step at a time. I'd like that. He reached out, his hand finding mine, and the simple touch sent electricity through my entire body. Is this okay? More than okay, I managed. We stood there in the kitchen, hands joined, pancakes forgotten, coffee growing cold. Outside, Seattle was waking up. The sounds of traffic, voices, the city coming to life. But in that moment, our small kitchen felt like the only place in the world. I'm scared, Marcus admitted quietly. Me too, I said. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the best things are a little scary. He squeezed my hand. Will you help me? Figure this out. Figure out us. The question he'd asked, without even knowing it, that would change everything. Yes, I said. Yes, I'll help you. And as Marcus pulled me into an embrace, his arms strong and sure around me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. Terrifying, exhilarating, absolutely genuine hope. This was just the beginning. Ethan and Marcus navigate the exciting and challenging beginning of their relationship. As they explore their feelings for each other, they must also confront external pressures, internal doubts, and the question of whether their connection can survive the real world. What happens when Marcus's family visits? How do they handle their first conflict? And what will it take for both of them to truly open their hearts? The first week after Marcus's confession was like learning to walk on a tightrope, while simultaneously being hit with waves of joy and terror. We'd agreed to take things slow, to let Marcus explore his feelings without pressure, to build something real rather than rushing into physical intimacy just because the attraction was there. It sounded simple in theory. In practice, it was the most challenging and rewarding thing I'd ever done. The shift in our dynamic was subtle but profound. We still did all the things we'd done before: cooking dinner, watching movies, talking late into the night, but now there was an undercurrent of awareness, a charge in the air. Whenever we were in the same room, Marcus would catch my eye across the kitchen while chopping vegetables, and something would pass between us that made my skin tingle. I'd hand him his coffee in the morning, and our fingers would brush, neither of us pulling away quite as quickly as before. We'd sit on the couch with gradually decreasing distance between us, until one night his leg pressed against mine and stayed there, warm and solid and intentional. "Is this okay?" became our constant refrain. Marcus asked it every time he reached for my hand, every time he let his arm drape across my shoulders, every time he crossed one of the invisible boundaries we were slowly negotiating. "More than okay," I'd tell him, and watch his face light up with relief and happiness. But it wasn't without complications. About 10 days after our kitchen conversation, I came home from work to find Marcus pacing the living room, his phone clutched in his hand, his expression troubled. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately, dropping my bag. He looked up, and I saw anxiety written all over his face. "My family is coming to visit. My mom just called. They're driving up from Portland this weekend. They want to see my new place, meet my roommate, take us out to dinner. I waited for the other shoe to drop. Ethan, they don't know he gestured vaguely between us. They don't know about any of this. I haven't even told Emily yet, and she's usually the first person I tell everything. I sat down on the couch, patting the space next to me. Marcus joined me, his knee bouncing with nervous energy. Okay, I said calmly, even though my own heart was racing. What do you want to do? I don't know, he admitted. Part of me wants to tell them everything. My parents have always been supportive and open-minded. My aunt is gay, and they love her and her wife. But this feels different because it's me, and because we're so new. And what if I'm still figuring things out? And Marcus, I interrupted gently, taking his hand. Breathe. He took a shaky breath, then another. There's no rule book for this, I continued. Coming out is deeply personal, and there's no right or wrong timeline. If you're not ready to tell them, that's completely valid. We can just be roommates for the weekend. I'm good at playing it straight. The unintentional pun made us both smile. But I don't want to hide you, Marcus said, his voice frustrated. I don't want to pretend that the most important thing that's happened to me in years is just nothing. My heart swelled at his words. I'm the most important thing. He turned to me, his expression softening. Are you kidding? Ethan, you've turned my entire world upside down in the best possible way. Every day I discover something new about myself, about what I want, about who I can be. And it's all because of you. I knew I was falling even harder right there in that moment. How about this? I suggested. Let's just play it by ear. Be yourself. If it feels right to tell them, tell them. If not, we wait. Either way, I support you 100%. Marcus leaned his forehead against mine, a gesture that had become our thing over the past week. How are you so understanding? Because I care about you, I said simply. And I know this is complicated. Thank you, he whispered. We sat like that for a long moment, finding comfort in each other's presence. Then Marcus's phone buzzed with a text, and reality came rushing back. Emily wants to video chat, he said, looking at the screen. She says it's important. Want me to give you privacy? No, he said quickly. Stay, please. So I stayed sitting next to him as he answered the call. Emily's face appeared on screen. She looked like a younger, feminine version of Marcus, with the same warm eyes and infectious smile. Mark, she said excitedly. I have news. I got accepted into the summer research program. She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes shifting to me. Oh, hi, you must be the roommate Marcus keeps mentioning. Ethan, I said, waving. Nice to meet you. Emily, she said, her smile turning knowing in a way that made me slightly nervous. Marcus, you didn't tell me your roommate was cute. Marcus's face went red. And what? I'm just making an observation. She leaned closer to her screen. So, Ethan, has my brother been a good roommate? Please tell me he's still doing that thing where he organizes the kitchen by color. He absolutely does. It's simultaneously adorable and mildly concerning. I knew it. She turned her attention back to Marcus. You can take the boy out of the Chen household. But you can't take the Chen household out of the boy. We talked for a few more minutes about her research program. Her classes, her life in LA, but I could see Emily's sharp mind working. Her eyes moving between Marcus and me with increasing curiosity. Finally, she said she had to go study, but not before giving Marcus a look that clearly said, we'll talk later. After the call ended, Marcus groaned and flopped backward on the couch. She knows. Knows what? That there's something between us. Emily's got this sixth sense about people. She's been able to read me like a book since we were kids. Is that a bad thing? I asked. He considered this. No, actually it might be easier. If I'm going to tell anyone first, it should be her. You want to call her back? Yeah, he said, sitting up with new determination. Yeah, I do. Could you stay for this too? I think it might be easier if you're here. So Marcus called his sister back. And this time, when she answered, he didn't waste time with small talk. I need to tell you something. Her expression shifted immediately to concern. What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm more than okay, actually. I'm just trying to figure some things out. He took a breath, and I squeezed his hand encouragingly off screen. Ethan isn't just my roommate. God, why is this so hard to say? Understanding dawned on Emily's face, followed immediately by a warm smile. You're together? We're figuring it out, Marcus said. I'm figuring it out. This is all new for me, and I'm still processing what it means that I'm attracted to a guy. That I have feelings for a guy. That everything I thought I knew about myself is shifting. How long? Emily asked gently. The feelings. Probably since he moved in. Actually acknowledging them? About a week and a half. Emily was quiet for a moment, and I could see her processing. Then she said, Can I talk to both of you? Ethan, are you there? I moved into frame. I'm here. First of all, she said, I want to say that I'm happy for you both. The happiness drained from Marcus's face. They're coming this weekend. I don't know what to do. Emily considered this. You know they'll be supportive, right? Remember when Aunt Lynn came out? Mom literally cried, tears of joy that she finally got to understand her sister better. I know, Marcus said, but this is different. I'm their son. And I'm still figuring out if I'm bi or gay or somewhere else on the spectrum. What if they have questions I can't answer? Then you tell them you're still figuring it out, Emily said simply. Mark, you don't have to have everything figured out to be honest about where you are right now. And honestly, I think they'd rather know and be able to support you than have you hiding something this important. Marcus looked at me, and I nodded. She's right. But again, it's your choice. Your timeline. What would you do, he asked me, if you were in my position? I thought about my own coming out experience, telling my parents when I was 19, home for winter break from college. My mom had hugged me and told me she loved me. My dad had needed a few days to process, but ultimately came around. We were fortunate, I knew. Not everyone had that experience. I'd probably tell them, I said honestly. But my situation was different. I'd known I was gay for years before I came out. You're navigating identity and a new relationship simultaneously, which is a lot. Marcus nodded slowly, thinking. Then he turned back to the screen. Em, you really think they'll be okay? I think they'll surprise you, she said. And hey, I'll be there in spirit. Call me right after, okay? Want to hear everything? After we said goodbye to Emily, Marcus seemed lighter, like a weight had been lifted. We ordered Thai food and spent the evening talking about his family, his childhood, the memories that shaped him. I told him about my own family, my supportive F-slit, lightly confused parents, who still sometimes asked if I had a friend instead of a boyfriend.
All the journey.
Of learning to be myself in a world that didn't always make space for people like me. I think I want to tell them, Marcus said as we were cleaning up from dinner this weekend. I want them to know who I really am, all of me. I'll be right there with you, I promised, however you need me to be. He kissed my forehead, we'd graduated to small gestures of affection like that, and whispered, Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for being brave, I replied. The weekend arrived faster than either of us was ready for. Marcus's parents, Linda and James Chun, pulled up Saturday afternoon in their sensible Honda CR-V, and I continued 9:11 a.m. watch through the window as Marcus went down to meet them. Linda was petite and elegant, her silver-streaked black hair cut in a stylish bob. James was tall and distinguished, with the same warm eyes as his son. They embraced Marcus tightly, and even from a distance I could see the love between them. My stomach churned with nerves. What if they didn't like me? What if they sensed something between Marcus and me and reacted badly? What if this whole weekend was a disaster? Stop it, I told myself. You're catastrophizing. The door opened and Marcus led his parents inside. Mom, Dad, this is Ethan. Ethan, my parents. Linda immediately came forward with a warm smile and pulled me into a hug. So wonderful to meet you, Marcus. Has told us so much about you. It's all good things, I hope, I said, returning the embrace. Of course, James said, shaking my hand firmly. He says you're a talented designer and an excellent cook. I wouldn't go that far, I demurred, but I try. Don't be modest, Marcus interjected. Your pasta carbonara is legendary. Afternoon passed pleasantly. We gave them a tour of the apartment, Linda exclaiming over the exposed brick and the light. James examined my design portfolio that Marcus insisted I show them, offering thoughtful comments that revealed a keen eye for detail. We talked about Seattle, about their restaurant, about everything except the truth humming beneath the surface. I could see Marcus growing more tense as the afternoon wore on, could recognize the signs of someone working up the courage to say something difficult. Finally, as we sat in the living room with coffee and the amazing pastries Linda had brought from their bakery, Marcus cleared his throat. "Mom, Dad, there's something I need to tell you." The shift in the room was immediate. Linda set down her coffee cup, her expression attentive and concerned. James leaned forward slightly, giving Marcus his full attention. "What is it, son?" James asked. Marcus looked at me and I gave him an encouraging nod. He took a deep breath. I've been doing a lot of self-reflection lately, and I've come to realize some things about myself that I want to share with you." Another breath. "I'm bisexual. Or maybe gay. I'm still figuring out the exact labels, but what I know for certain is that I'm attracted to men." Specifically, he reached for my hand. "I'm in a relationship with Ethan." The silence that followed felt eternal. Bill watched. Linda and James processed the information, saw the surprise register, followed by something else I couldn't quite read. Then Linda's face broke into a smile, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, Marcus, thank you for trusting us with this." She stood and wrapped Marcus in a fierce hug. James followed, embracing them both. I sat there, hands still extended toward Marcus, relief flooding through me. When they finally separated, Linda turned to me, her eyes still wet. "And you, Ethan R., you treating my son well?" "I'm trying my best," I said honestly. "That's all we can ask," James said. Then to Marcus, "How long have you known about myself?" "Really? Only a few weeks." "About my feelings for Ethan? Longer?" But I was in denial. Linda nodded, taking this in. "And are you happy?" Face transformed, joy radiating from every feature. "So happy, Mom. Happier than I've been in a long time." "Then that's what matters," she said simply. The conversation that followed was everything Marcus could have hoped for. His parents asked questions, thoughtful, caring questions about how he was feeling, what he needed, how they could support him. James shared that he'd wondered if Marcus might be gay when he was in high school, but had decided to let Marcus figure it out on his own timeline. "You always seem to light up more around your male friends," James explained. "But I also knew that sexuality is personal, and you'd tell us when you were ready." "Why didn't you say anything?" Marcus asked. "Because it wasn't my truth to name," James said. "It was yours." Linda wanted to know all about how we'd gotten together, laughing at the story of drunk Marcus's confession and nodding approvingly when I explained that we were taking things slowly. "That's wise," she said. "Building a foundation. A friendship and trust. That's how your father and I started." As the evening wore on and we headed to dinner at a seafood restaurant overlooking the water, I felt the last of my anxiety dissolve. Marcus held my hand under the table. His parents asked about my family and my work with genuine interest, and for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future where this wasn't just a beautiful beginning, but something lasting. But of course, nothing worthwhile comes without its challenges. The trouble started the following Tuesday. Marcus came home from work, clearly agitated, throwing his bag down with more force than necessary, and heading straight for the shower without his usual greeting. I gave him space, continuing to work on my laptop, but concern gnawed at me. When he finally emerged, hair damp and dressed in sweatpants and a t-shirt, he still looked troubled. "I want to talk about it," I asked. He sank onto the couch next to me, running his hands through his wet hair. "I told my boss today about being bi." My stomach dropped. How did it go?" "He was fine with it, said all the right things about the clinic being inclusive and supportive." Marcus's jaw tightened, but then he pulled me aside later and suggested that maybe I should be discreet around certain clients. Said that some of the athletes he works with come from conservative backgrounds and might be uncomfortable if they knew. Anger flared in my chest. He said that. Not in so many words, but the message was clear. Stay in the closet for the comfort of others. He looked at me, frustration and hurt written across his face. I spent years building up this practice, developing relationships with these clients, and now I'm supposed to hide who I am because it might make them uncomfortable. I moved closer, putting my arm around him. I'm so sorry, that's completely unfair. The thing is, I get it from a business perspective. I do, but it also makes me feel like I'm back to square one, like I came out just to be told to go back in. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his words hanging between us. What do you want to do? I asked finally. I don't know. Part of me wants to quit, to tell him to shove his discretion and find somewhere that actually values all of me. But I also love my work, love my clients. I don't want to abandon them because my boss is a coward. Those aren't your only options, I said gently. You could stay and push back. You could file a complaint with HR. You could start looking for other positions while maintaining your current one. You have choices, Marcus. He leaned his head on my shoulder. This is harder than I thought it would be. What is being out? Navigating the world as a queer person. I knew intellectually that there would be challenges, but experiencing it firsthand is different. I kissed the top of his head. Welcome to the club. It's not always easy, but it gets better. And you're not alone in this. I know, he whispered. Having you makes it bearable. We talked late into the night about his options, about the complexities of being out in professional spaces, about the balance between authenticity and pragmatism. By the time we went to bed, Marcus hadn't made a decision, but he seemed lighter, more centered. Thank you, he said. As we stood in the hallway between our rooms, we still hadn't crossed that final boundary. Still maintained separate bedrooms, even though we both knew it was only a matter of time. For what? For listening. For not telling me what to do? For just being here. I cupped his face in my hands, looking into those eyes that had become so dear to me. Always. He kissed me then, soft and sweet, a promise and a question all at once. When we pulled apart, both of us were breathing harder. Good night, Ethan, he murmured. Good night, Marcus. I lay in bed that night, thinking about the journey we'd been on together. A month ago, Marcus hadn't even acknowledged his feelings. Now he was navigating coming out to family, to colleagues, to the world. It was a lot to process, a lot to handle. And I wanted so badly to protect him from every hurt, every rejection, every moment of pain, but I also knew that I couldn't. This was his journey, and all I could do was walk beside him, offering support and love and understanding. The next morning, Marcus came out of his room with a determined expression. I'm going to talk to HR, he announced. And I'm going to be honest with my clients, on my own terms, in my own time. If they have a problem with who I am, then they're not the right fit for my practice. Pride swelled in my chest. I think that's brave. I learned from the best, he said, kissing my cheek before heading to the kitchen to make coffee. The rest of the week was better. Marcus filed his complaint with HR. He took it seriously and had a conversation with his boss about appropriate workplace conduct. While nothing dramatic changed immediately, Marcus felt heard and validated. We fell into new routines, morning coffee together, quick texts throughout the day, cooking dinner side by side, evenings spent talking or watching movies or simply existing in the same space. The physical intimacy between us grew gradually. Hand-holding evolved to casual cuddling. Goodnight kisses became longer and more heated. Though we still maintained our separate bedrooms, I want to make sure this is right. Marcus explained one night as we reluctantly separated after a particularly intense make-out session on the couch. I don't want to rush something this important. I appreciate that, I said, meaning it even as my body protested. We have time. Following weekend, Riley came over for brunch. I'd filled them in on everything over text, but this was their first time seeing Marcus and me together as a couple. So Riley said. That night, for the first time, Marcus didn't go to his own room. We lay in my bed, fully clothed, talking and kissing and holding each other until we fell asleep, tangled together. It felt like crossing a threshold, not into physical intimacy necessarily, but into a deeper level of emotional commitment. This was real. We were real. And whatever challenges came next, we'd face them together as Ethan and Marcus's relationship deepens. They must navigate their first real test as a couple. An unexpected opportunity forces Marcus to make a difficult choice. While Ethan confronts his own insecurities about their future, will their love be strong enough to weather the storm? Find out in the emotional conclusion. 3 months into our relationship, I woke up every morning still slightly amazed that this was my life. Marcus had essentially moved into my room, though we kept his bedroom set up as a guest room and his office. We'd established morning routines, him waking early for his run, coming back to wake me with coffee and a kiss, both of us getting ready for work while negotiating bathroom time and stealing glances at each other in the mirror. Our evenings were a mix of quiet domesticity and genuine fun. We'd try new recipes together, Marcus teaching me techniques his mother had taught him while I introduced him to the shortcuts and hacks I'd learned from years of cooking, for one. We'd have friends over. Riley became a regular fixture, as did some of Marcus's colleagues from the clinic. We'd integrated into each other's lives so seamlessly that sometimes I forgot we'd only been together for a few months. But beneath the surface of this beautiful beginning, I felt the whisper of old fears. The voice that said this was too good to last. That I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. That eventually Marcus would wake up and realize he'd made a mistake. I'd been in therapy since my last breakup. And my therapist, Dr. Morgan, kept reminding me that I needed to communicate these fears rather than letting them fester. Your pattern has been to people please and accommodate until you lose yourself, she'd told me in our last session. With Marcus, you need to practice vulnerability. Share your fears, your needs, your boundaries. Easier said than done. The first sign of trouble came on a Wednesday evening in early October. Marcus came home from work with an expression I'd learned to recognize: excited but anxious. Like he had news he wasn't sure how to share. So he said as we sat down to the stir-fry he'd made. Something happened at work today. Good something or bad something? Both? Maybe? He set down his fork. Dr. Reeves, the head of the sports medicine department, offered me a position. My heart leaped. Marcus, that's amazing. I know you've been hoping for. It's in Portland, he interrupted quietly. The words hung in the air between us, and I felt my world tilt. Portland? I repeated numbly. They're opening a new clinic specifically focused on LGBTQ+ athletic care. Everything I've been dreaming about, everything I've wanted to build, they're giving me the opportunity to do it. I'd be the lead physical therapist, helping to develop the entire program from the ground up. I could hear the excitement in his voice, see the way his eyes lit up as he described the opportunity. This was his dream, the work he was passionate about, the chance to make a real difference. And it was 3 hours away.
Yes.
When would you start? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. They want me to begin in January. That gives me about 3 months to wrap up here, find a place there, train. I nodded, and for the first time since he'd told me about the offer, I actually felt sure. I'm sure. Because I love you, and I want you to build the career you've been dreaming of. Even if it's hard for us, even if it requires sacrifice, you're worth it. Marcus kissed me then, deep and desperate and full of promise. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were breathing hard. I need to think about this more, he said. But knowing that we're in this together, it makes everything clearer. We walked home hand in hand, and that night we made love for the first time. It was tender and awkward and absolutely perfect, a physical expression of the emotional commitment we'd just made to each other. Afterward, lying in his arms, I felt something shift inside. Mitha, fear was still there. But it was no longer in control. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Marcus ultimately accepted the position in Portland, but with the condition that he could start in February instead of January, giving us an extra month together. He also negotiated the ability to work remotely 1 week per month, which would help with the distance. We told our friends and family about the change. Riley's response was characteristically blunt. Long distance sucks, but if anyone can make it work, you too can. Marcus's parents were supportive, but concerned. His mother pulled me aside during a visit and asked if I was okay. Honestly, I'm scared, I admitted. But I'm also hopeful. Does that make sense? She smiled warmly. perfect sense. That's what love is, being scared and hopeful in equal measure. My own parents, when I told them about Marcus and the situation, surprised me with their wisdom. Relationships worth having are worth fighting for, my dad said over the phone. If this man makes you happy, a few hours of distance shouldn't change that. Your father's right, my mom added. Plus, Portland is lovely. We've been meaning to visit. As the holidays approached, Marcus and I made deliberate efforts to soak up our time together. We took a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands, renting a small cabin and spending 3 days hiking, talking, and simply being together without the pressure of everyday life. One evening, sitting by the fireplace in our cabin, Marcus brought up something that had been on my mind but I hadn't known how to address. Have you thought about your lease? He asked. It's up in March, right? Yeah, I said. I've been avoiding thinking about it, honestly. What if you didn't renew it? I looked at him, confused. I'd need somewhere to live. I meant he took a breath. What if you came with me? To Portland? The question hung in the air, enormous and terrifying and exhilarating. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Actually, I'm hoping. He took my hands. I know it's a big ask. Your life is here, your job, Riley, everything familiar. But we've been talking about long distance like it's inevitable, and maybe it doesn't have to be. My mind raced. Move to Portland? Leave Seattle, the city I'd called home for 5 years. Start over in a new place? I don't have a job there, I said slowly. You could work remotely or find something new. You're talented, Ethan. Agencies would be lucky to have you. What about Riley? Portland is 2 hours away, not across the country. You'd still see them, and they could visit. He was making sense, but the fear was creeping back in. What if we move there together, and it doesn't work out? Then I'm in a new city. No job, no apartment. What if it does work out? Marcus countered. What if this is the start of the life we build together? I looked into his eyes, seeing the hope and fear mirrored there, and realized something crucial. We were both scared, both taking a leap, both choosing love over certainty. Can I think about it? I asked, of course. Take all the time you need. Talk to Dr. Morgan about it in our next session. What's holding you back? She asked. Fear of being dependent on him. Fear of losing myself in the relationship. Fear of making a huge life change for someone and then regretting it. Those are all valid fears, she acknowledged. But let me ask you this. If you stay in Seattle and do long distance, and the relationship doesn't work out, how would you feel? Sad, heartbroken. And if you move to Portland with Marcus, and the relationship doesn't work out? I thought about it. Sad and heartbroken, but also maybe proud of myself for taking the risk, for choosing love over fear. Dr. Morgan smiled. There's your answer. I talked to Riley next. We met for coffee, and I laid out the situation. So you're thinking of moving to Portland, they said when I finished. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think? Riley studied me for a long moment. I think you've been waiting for someone to give you permission to be happy. And Ethan, you don't need permission. If this feels right, if Marcus feels right, then do it. I'll miss you like crazy, but I'll also be proud of you for choosing something brave. You're supposed to tell me not to move, I protested weakly. Why? So you can be miserable here instead of happy there? That's not how love works, babe. They reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Besides, Portland's not that far. I'll come bug you all the time. That night, I made my decision. I found Marcus in the living room, reading a book about sports medicine innovations. He looked up when I entered, and I could see the question in his eyes. I want to come with you, I said simply. To Portland. I want us to build a life together there. His face lit up like sunrise. Yeah. I'm terrified, and I'm probably going to have moments of panic and doubt. But I love you, and I want to see where this goes. Marcus set down his book and crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling me into a kiss that conveyed everything words couldn't. And when we finally separated, both of us were grinning like idiots. We're really doing this, he said. We're really doing this, I confirmed. The next 2 months were a blur of activity. I gave notice at my job, though they surprised me by offering a remote position with the flexibility to work from Portland. Marcus found us a beautiful apartment in the Pearl District with exposed bricka. Nod to our Seattle place and large windows that let in gorgeous light. Riley threw us a going-away party that was equal parts celebration and Irish wake. Friends from both our lives came together, sharing stories and wishes and making us promise to visit often. "Take care of my boy, Riley," told Marcus, pulling him aside at one point in the evening. "It's my life," Marcus promised. "Good, because if you hurt him, I will drive to Portland specifically to cause you problems." Marcus grinned. I'd expect nothing less. My parents drove up from Olympia to see the apartment before we left. My mom crying and hugging me tight while my dad shook Marcus's hand and told him to take care of my kid. Emily flew up for a weekend to help us pack, regaling us with stories from med school and teasing Marcus mercilessly about being domesticated. "I give it 6 months before you're adopting a dog," she predicted. "We're not getting a dog," Marcus and I said simultaneously, then looked at each other and laughed. "Sure," Emily said. "That's what they all say." Moving day came on a cold February morning. As we loaded the last box into the U-Haul, I stood in our empty apartment, feeling the weight of endings and beginnings. "You okay?" Marcus asked, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist. "Yeah," I said, leaning back into him. "Just taking a moment. We can stay longer if you need to." I shook my head. "No, I'm ready. Let's go home." "Home," he repeated, smiling against my neck. I liked the sound of that. Drive to Portland took 3.5 hours with traffic. We listened to music, sang off-key to our favorite songs, held hands across the center console. By the time we pulled up to our new apartment building, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Our furniture wouldn't arrive until the next day. So that first night, we ordered Canoe 9:15 a.m. pizza and ate it sitting on the floor, our voices echoing slightly in the empty space. "I can't believe we live in Portland now," I said, looking around. "Can't believe you chose to come with me," Marcus countered. "Do you know how much that means to me?" "Probably about as much as you choosing to build a life with me means to me." He leaned over and kissed me, tasting of pizza and promise. "I'm going to make you so happy here." "You already do," I said honestly. "Geography doesn't change that." We spent our first night in our new home in sleeping bags on the floor, talking about our dreams for this next chapter. Marcus described his vision for the clinic, the programs he wanted to implement, the difference he hoped to make. I talked about my work, about maybe taking on more freelance clients, about the creative freedom remote work would give me.
What do you want for us?"
Marcus asked as we lay in the dark, the unfamiliar sounds of our new neighborhood filtering through the windows. "I want what we have now," I said. "This partnership. This feeling of building something together. I want Sunday morning pancakes and arguing about pizza toppings and coming home to you every day." "That sounds perfect," he murmured, pulling me closer. "I want all of that too. And eventually, maybe more. A dog, despite what we told Emily. Maybe marriage someday, if that's something you'd want." My heart skipped. "Are you proposing?" "Not yet," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "But I'm letting you know that I'm thinking about forever with you. That you're not just my right now, you're my long-term plan." I turned in his arms so I could see his face in the dim light from the street. "I love you, Marcus Chen. I love you, Ethan Mitchell." We kissed, slow and sweet, and I felt the last of my fear dissolve. This was right. We were right. And whatever challenges came next, we'd face them together. The first few months in Portland were an adjustment, not going to lie. There were moments of homesickness, times when I missed Riley so intensely it physically hurt. Days when everything felt unfamiliar and overwhelming. But there were also moments of pure joy. Watching Marcus light up as he built his dream clinic. Seeing him work with LGBTQ athletes who finally had a safe space to receive care. Finding my own rhythm in the city, discovering coffee shops and bookstores and parks that became our places. Making new friends through Marcus's work and my expanding freelance network. Riley visited once a month, crashing on our couch and declaring themselves our quality control inspector for local restaurants. My parents came for Easter, delighted with our apartment and the life we were building. Marcus's parents stopped by frequently on their way to and from the restaurant, always bringing food and love in equal measure. 6 months after our move, Marcus surprised me by bringing home a Papilla Golden Retriever mix we named Pancake, because she was the color of Marcus's Sunday morning specialty. "I thought we weren't getting a dog," I said, even as I was already on the floor letting Pancake climb all over me. "I changed my mind," Marcus said, grinning. "Emily was right. We needed a dog." 8 months in, my company offered me a promotion to senior designer, recognizing the quality of work I'd been producing remotely. The raise was significant, enough that I could contribute more equally to our expenses, which alleviated some of the financial stress I'd been feeling. 10 months after moving, on a cool December evening, Marcus took me to dinner at a fancy restaurant overlooking the Willamette River. We ate excellent food, drank too much wine, and talked about everything and nothing. When dessert arrived, I found a small box on the plate. My hands shook as I picked it up. Inside was a simple silver band. "Ethan," Marcus said, his own hands trembling slightly, "this year has been the best of my life. Every day with you is a gift. And I know we talked about forever being somewhere in the future, but I don't want to wait anymore. I want to start building that future now." He slid out of his chair and knelt beside the table, taking my hand. "Will you marry me?" Through tears, I managed to say, "Yes. God, yes." The restaurant erupted in applause as Marcus slipped the ring onto my finger and kissed me. And in that moment, surrounded by strangers celebrating our love, I realized something profound. I'd been so afraid of losing myself in a relationship, of making the wrong choice, of getting hurt again. But loving Marcus hadn't made me lose myself. It had helped me find myself, the brave part that could take risks, the hopeful part that could believe in happy endings, the strong part that could choose love over fear. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony in Seattle. With Riley as our best person and Emily as Marcus's, both sets of parents cried through the entire thing. We wrote our own vows, and when it was my turn to speak, I looked at Marcus, my partner, my best friend. My homie said, "You asked me for help once, in a moment of vulnerability and courage. You couldn't have known then that you were also helping me heal. Helping me hope, helping me believe that love could be both safe and extraordinary. You've taught me that the best things in life are worth being scared for. That home isn't a place, it's a person. That choosing to be vulnerable is the bravest thing we can do. I promise to choose you every day in every moment." For the rest of my life, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Marcus's vows were equally beautiful, ending with, "You've seen me at my most confused, my most uncertain, and you loved me through it all. You've been patient with my journey, my questions, my growth, and now I get to spend the rest of my life loving you with the certainty I've never felt about anything else. You're my unexpected gift, my greatest adventure, my forever person." That night at our reception in a small restaurant in Capitol Hill, Riley pulled me aside. "You did good, babe," they said, hugging me tight. "Really good, I got lucky," I said. "You chose love," they corrected. "That's not luck. That's courage." I sat in our home office in Portland, putting the final touches on a design project, Pancake snoring softly under my desk. Through the window, I could see the cherry trees blooming, painting the street in shades of pink and white. The front door opened, and I heard Marcus call out, "I'm home." Pancake immediately abandoned me, racing to greet him. I followed at a more sedate pace, finding Marcus in the entryway, being enthusiastically licked by our dog. "How was your day?" I asked, kissing him hello. "Good. Great, actually." He pulled me close. "We got approval for the expansion. We're going to be able to serve twice as many clients." "Marcus, that's amazing." "I know, and I couldn't have done any of it without you. Your support, your belief in me," he shook his head. "I'm so lucky." "We're both lucky," I corrected, echoing Riley's words from our wedding night. "But also we both chose this. Chose each other. That's better than luck." Later that evening, as we cooked dinner together, pancake weaving between our legs in hopes of dropped food. I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From roommates to lovers to husbands, from Seattle to Portland, from fear to hope to love. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked, noticing my expression. "Just how different my life is from what I imagined," I said honestly. 2.5 years ago, I was convinced I was better off alone. And now? Now I can't imagine being anywhere else with anyone else. "You're my home, Marcus." He set down the spoon he was holding and pulled me into a kiss, deep and sweet and full of promise. "You're mine too," he murmured against my lips. "Today, tomorrow, always." "Always," I agreed, and as we stood there in our kitchen in Portland, music playing softly in the background, pancake finally getting a dropped piece of chicken, I felt the kind of peace that comes from being exactly where you're meant to be, with exactly who you're meant to be with. My roommate had asked me for help once, in ways neither of us fully understood at the time, and in helping him, I'd helped myself. We'd both found home.